lament. The dead linger.
Frost steamed off the prison hulk as it bled atmosphere into the pale sky above Cythera Tertius. Condensation and engine soot drifting down like industrial incense. The brass tally engine clicked louder than hymns from the chapel voxcasters, each metallic percussion marking another soul processed, another body cataloged. Shackled figures shuffled past in endless columns, while an Arbite scribe worked with mechanical precision, pressing heated numerals into forearms still weeping plasma and cauterized flesh. "Account the wicked, measure their worth," the scribe chanted, never looking up from his ledger. The catechism merged with screams and the hiss of burning skin into a liturgy of systematic dehumanization. Behind him, a servo skull swung past with an ink brush, documenting cough frequency and physical deterioration rates with clinical detachment. This is not rehabilitation. This is conversion. Human chaos transformed into quantified imperial outputs at acceptable attrition rates. The machine demands ore and obedience, reconciling both in the same administrative ledger. 23% of this subsector's raw materials originate from worlds like Cythera Tertius, where millions pass through processing annually. The administratum calls it reclamation. The mathematics reveal it as systematic resource extraction. The scribe's cogitator displays two synchronized columns that expose the system's underlying logic. Flesh quotas align precisely with ore production targets, human mortality indexed against mineral extraction rates with mathematical precision. Each prisoner represents calculable value, labor capacity measured in months, resource consumption tracked to the gram, productive output projected until inevitable termination, bodies per ton, rations per meter cut, projected attrition against vein grade. A red stamp thuds at irregular intervals, wet and final. The red classification requires no explanation here. Those marked vanish through different gates under different hymns. The brand appears identical, but guards stand straighter when the overseer walks them past. No one asks the rule. The rule is not to ask. Still, the tally engine keeps count. Red, 17 today by 9th bell. Jorik Van, factory foreman, tithe protest. Case closed in 7 minutes. Stumbled when his chain jerked forward. He watched the scribe weigh his file, not his face, learning the first law. Numbers moved people, not the reverse. Above the processing station, a pick screen blinked monthly variance reports, negative 3.2%. The cogitator spat correction ribbons like tongues of displeasure. When the last chain cleared the ramp, the hulk exhaled and lifted, lighter by 50,000 names. Clerks scraped blood from branding dyes, filed confiscated jewelry, and locked ledgers with tinny clicks that carried farther than sermons. In the distance, sirens pulsed along rails funneling the newly branded toward extraction. Shafts. The next transport circled the planet's terminator line, its cargo holds packed with fresh inventory. Processing would begin again on schedule, the eternal engine of imperial justice grinding forward with bureaucratic inevitability. The transport that had circled Cythera Tertius now descended through rust-colored atmosphere, its cargo manifest reflecting a judicial apparatus that operated more like industrial procurement than criminal justice. The Adeptus Arbites had filled the penitent's burden according to precise demographic specifications, processing conviction quotas with algorithmic efficiency that rendered individual guilt secondary to sectoral requirements. Most passengers were economic casualties rather than violent criminals. Failed tithe payers comprised 38% of the manifest, their families included under inherited guilt protocols that swept entire bloodlines into the system. Surplus populations from overcrowded hab blocks filled another 22%, condemned for resource burden infractions, when food riots exceeded acceptable casualty thresholds. The remainder included suspected heretic associates, unlicensed traders, and workers like Jorik who had questioned production quotas too publicly. Conviction rates exceeded 97% across all sectors, achieved through standardized processing that rendered verdicts before trials concluded. Cases moved through Arbeit's chambers in batches of 500, with sentences predetermined by labor projections and demographic requirements rather than evidence or testimony. The robed arbitrators read decisions already calculated by cogitator banks, their ceremonial gavels falling with mechanical precision. Each sector maintained social reclamation targets independent of actual crime rates. When conviction numbers fell short of quarterly quotas, Arbeit's patrols expanded their interpretation of existing statutes. Loitering became conspiracy, hoarding became theft, exhaustion became insubordination. The system generated its own supply, converting social problems into productive assets through bureaucratic alchemy. Violent criminals rarely boarded transports. Murder earned a bolt round. Rape earned public flaying. Sedition earned plasma fire. Prison worlds needed functional laborers, not psychopaths. The penal system required predictable populations capable of productive output before inevitable termination. True criminals were waste. The economically inconvenient were raw material. Pre-sentencing medical examinations sorted the condemned into useful categories before trials concluded. Heavy laborers went to mining worlds. Technical specialists went to manufacturums. The weak and elderly went to agricultural penal colonies, where life expectancy measured in seasons. Age, physical condition, and mechanical aptitude determined destination assignments, not the severity of alleged crimes. Jorik's case file contained 47 pages documenting his factory management experience and technical skills. His actual transgression, questioning why production quotas increased while worker rations decreased, occupied 3 lines in the summary section. The Arbeits had valued his capabilities more than his crime, shipping him to Kithra Tertius, where mechanical knowledge extended survival prospects beyond statistical averages. The penitent's burden had delivered similar cargo to 17 different penal worlds across the subsector, its manifest carefully balanced to meet each facility's labor requirements. Kithra Tertius received miners and technicians, Agri-World penance. 7 got the elderly and infirm. Combat penal legions claimed the few whose crimes warranted battlefield redemption rather than execution. As the great ship's landing struts locked to processing rails, 50,000 voices rose in desperate prayer. Guard Captain Moros received the arrival codes without ceremony, signing manifests that converted people into inventory. The first 72 hours would determine everything. Rapid sorting that transformed human chaos into quantified Imperial output through systematic dehumanization. Guard Captain Moros's signature converted the manifest into processing orders, triggering 72 hours of systematic conversion from human cargo to functional labor units. The condemned shuffled through decontamination chambers where possessions vanished into administrative bins, wedding rings, dental work, prosthetics, sorted with clerical efficiency. Personal effects became inventory. People became data points requiring classification. Medical screening operated through brutal arithmetic. Amputees lost remaining limbs to prevent resource waste, their stumps cauterized while consciousness remained. The terminally ill received bolt rounds, their bodies processed for protein reclamation before rigor mortis complicated handling. Chronic conditions earned immediate euthanization. The system required functional units, not medical burdens. Classification emerged through scarification burned into conscious forearms. Heavies received black brands for deep mining assignments where life expectancy measured in months. Technicals got blue marks for equipment maintenance, their mechanical skills extending survival prospects. Domestics earned brown brands for food preparation and sanitation duties. Expendables received yellow scarification for hazardous clearance. Tunnel collapses, toxic disposal, unexploded ordnance removal. Red classifications followed different protocols. Guards straightened when overseers processed these cases, their scarification performed in isolated chambers beyond general observation. Red-marked prisoners vanished through skull-marked gates, their destinations unspecified in processing documentation. The tally engine counted them separately, tracking numbers without explanation. Jorik's factory background earned blue scarification, the heated metal-searing flesh that would never heal. Around him, prisoners received classifications through identical mechanical processes, human worth reduced to color codes determining survival prospects. The brands served multiple functions: identification, intimidation, permanent marking preventing any pretense of release. Processing clerks directed classified prisoners through underground tunnel networks, honeycombing the facility. Sigma 7 appeared repeatedly on directional signs and warning placards, its designation carved into ancient stone predating current construction. The tunnels stretched beyond visible limits, their steady mechanical pulse suggesting hidden machinery operating below administrative awareness. First-night mortality claimed 3% through exposure, violence, and despair. The compound provided minimal shelter, corrugated lean-tos offering wind protection but no warmth. Prisoners huddled together while guards patrolled elevated walkways, searchlights sweeping across branded flesh with mechanical regularity. Jorik learned survival's first rule before dawn. The system operated through unwritten protocols deliberately kept opaque. Guard rotations followed patterns, food distribution operated through hierarchies. Work assignments responded to informal negotiations. Branded prisoners surviving beyond their first week possessed knowledge processing never provided, real rules governing daily existence. Violence erupted sporadically as desperate prisoners fought over sleeping spaces and food scraps. Guards intervened only when conflicts threatened operational capacity. Shock malls delivering precise brutality, restoring order without reducing labor numbers. The dead were processed before morning count, their brands removed for reuse. As dawn approached, Jorik understood processing never ended. The system consumed human material at predictable rates requiring constant replenishment. Survival meant learning to function within machinery designed for systematic consumption, where tomorrow would bring the true test of endurance. Dawn brought the machinery of extraction to life, steam whistles shrieking across Kythera Tertius as branded prisoners shuffled toward shaft entrances that would justify the penal system's existence. The planet's rare earth deposits powered Imperial technology across 3 subsectors, but extraction processes remained lethally toxic through deliberate design. Human expenditure maximized productive output while minimizing equipment costs. 16-hour shifts began before sunrise, prisoners chained in teams of 12 to prevent escape and ensure collective accountability. If one died from toxic exposure or tunnel collapse, the remaining 11 lost rations for 3 days. The system created desperate interdependence, forcing prisoners to monitor each other's survival with predatory intensity. Weak links earned violence from teammates whose lives depended on maintaining productive capacity. Deep mining operations descended through poisoned veins where atmospheric processors failed deliberately. Respiratory protection consisted of cloth strips soaked in industrial solvent, offering psychological comfort, while lungs absorbed metallic particulates guaranteeing organ failure within 18 months. Guards never descended below level 3. Automated systems monitored production through embedded sensors, tracking movement and excavation rates. Production quotas increased monthly through algorithmic progression, ignoring physical limitations. Teams extracting 2 tons daily faced 3-ton requirements the following month, then 4, then 5. Equipment remained deliberately primitive, hand tools and muscle power, extracting materials that could be harvested through automated systems. Human flesh cost less than machinery maintenance, making mechanical efficiency counterproductive to operational goals. Efficiency bonuses created competition between dying prisoners desperate for medical treatment. Teams exceeding quotas received antibiotics, pain suppressors, and respiratory treatments, extending functional life by weeks or months. The rewards fostered violent competition as teams sabotaged rivals' equipment, stole excavated materials, and murdered weaker prisoners whose presence reduced collective output. Trustees managed daily operations through earned authority, their survival beyond 3 years demonstrating administrative value to guards who preferred minimal direct involvement. These long-term prisoners understood quota synchronization, or targets aligned precisely with projected mortality rates. The system required specific death tolls to maintain optimal replacement cycles, making survival a mathematical game played against predetermined outcomes. Jorik's technical background earned assignment to equipment maintenance, his blue scarification granting access to machinery requiring mechanical knowledge. Pump systems, atmospheric processors, and excavation equipment demanded constant repair, their deliberate obsolescence ensuring regular breakdowns extending shift durations. Technical prisoners lived longer but faced different pressures. Their specialized knowledge made them valuable enough to preserve through selective medical treatment. Underground, prisoners discovered the true economics governing their existence. Quota boards displayed synchronized columns, tracking ore extraction against mortality projections, revealing systematic coordination between production targets and human consumption. Guards calculated replacement schedules before prisoners died, requisitioning fresh transport manifests based on projected attrition rather than actual casualties. By evening count, Jorik understood the mathematics. Kithra Tertius consumed human material at predictable rates to maintain imperial supply chains. The work never stopped, but survival meant understanding the unwritten, hierarchies that determined who lived long enough to see another quota period. The quota mathematics that governed daily survival crystallized into rigid social hierarchies emerging from engineered scarcity, structures that guards deliberately fostered to minimize direct intervention while maximizing control efficiency. Within weeks, Kithra Tertius sorted its condemned population into predictable castes determined by survival value and administrative utility. Trustees occupied the apex, survivors of 3 years or more whose longevity demonstrated administrative worth exceeding their labor capacity. These weathered prisoners managed daily operations through earned authority, distributing rations, assigning work details, and enforcing guard directives with brutal efficiency. Their scarred faces and mechanical movements marked prolonged exposure to systematic dehumanization, while their survival skills made them indispensable to operational continuity. Gang bosses controlled work teams through selective violence and resource manipulation, their authority flowing from guards who preferred indirect management. These positions offered marginally better rations and medical treatment as payment for maintaining discipline among desperate populations. Gang boss Kellum commanded Shaft 7 operations, his reputation built on keeping quotas met while minimizing team casualties, a balance requiring calculated brutality. Specialists like Jorik occupied precarious middle positions where technical knowledge provided temporary protection while creating dependency relationships. Mechanical skills, literacy, and administrative experience granted access to better assignments but made them targets for exploitation. Knowledge became currency, requiring careful spending to avoid depletion through overuse or elimination by competitors. Commons formed the massive base, general laborers whose survival depended on avoiding notice while meeting production targets. Their scarification marked them as expendable, life expectancy measured in months rather than years. Violence among commons erupted regularly as desperation drove competition for marginal advantages in food distribution and work assignments. Expendables existed below social recognition, their yellow brands marking them for hazardous duties where survival measured in days. Tunnel clearance, toxic disposal, and unexploded ordnance removal consumed expendables at predictable rates, while their minimal rations and medical neglect accelerated inevitable termination. This hierarchy maintained itself through flesh taxes, tribute systems where weaker prisoners surrendered food, protection, or bodily autonomy to stronger inmates. Gang bosses collected percentages from production bonuses. Trustees demanded sexual services from younger prisoners. Specialists traded knowledge for physical protection. The system created markets in human degradation, converting desperation into exploitable resources. Sanctuary assignments appeared sporadically on work rosters, offering temporary safety from general population violence through unspecified duties requiring terrible compromises. Prisoners feared accepting these assignments despite promised protection, whispering warnings about costs never explicitly stated. Those who accepted returned, changed, or disappeared entirely, their haunted expressions suggesting prices beyond physical endurance. Jorik navigated his first month by trading literacy skills for protection, teaching gang boss Kellum to read production reports in exchange for team inclusion. The arrangement provided safety while revealing how information flowed through prisoner networks, intelligence carefully distributed to maintain hierarchical authority over desperate populations. Guards observed this social machinery with clinical detachment, intervening only when violence threatened operational capacity. They understood prisoner hierarchies maintained order more effectively than direct supervision, allowing skeleton crews to manage thousands through systematic exploitation of survival instincts that converted resistance into internal competition. The prisoner hierarchies that maintained order through internal violence operated under the watchful authority of the Penal Guard, Imperial Guard veterans assigned to Kithra Tertius as their final posting before retirement or death. These fortified compounds sat separated from general population by wasteland and automated defenses, their elevated positions offering commanding views of human machinery grinding below. Most guards were casualties themselves, shell-shocked veterans, disciplinary cases, soldiers too old for active warfare yet too valuable for simple discharge. Sergeant Vex had lost his entire squad to tyrannid bioweapons, his nightmares requiring chemical suppression. Corporal Hahn faced court-martial for insubordination before penal reassignment. Trooper Kellis suffered traumatic brain injury from artillery concussion, his cognitive damage making civilian reintegration impossible. The Penal Guard collected broken soldiers whose service records earned final assignments rather than execution. Guard Captain Thane Moros commanded through 8 years of systematic human consumption. His Cadian regiment tattoos faded beneath atmospheric burns. His uniform remained parade ground crisp, but his frame had thinned while his eyes acquired the vacant stare of prolonged exposure to institutional dehumanization. Moros understood which gang bosses responded to extra rations versus public executions, how long sedatives lasted in prisoner food supplies, and the precise psychological breaking points of desperate populations. Guards worked 72-hour rotations, managing thousands through surveillance networks and strategic brutality, their extended shifts minimizing personnel requirements while maximizing operational efficiency. Automated turrets responded to unauthorized gatherings, calibrated to wound rather than kill, preserving labor capacity while demonstrating consequences. Surveillance systems tracked biometric data, location coordinates, and productivity metrics through embedded sensors, generating movement maps that predicted riots before they materialized. Correction protocols provided standardized punishment procedures escalating through predictable stages. Level 1 reduced rations by 20% for quota failures. Level 2 added solitary confinement and public flogging. Level 3 withdrew medical access entirely. Level 4 meant summary execution, rare but theatrical, designed as lessons for surviving witnesses. Triggers operated mechanically. 3 consecutive production variances converging informant reports, heat signatures clustering in forbidden zones. Coping mechanisms included sanctioned alcohol distribution, stimulant medications for depression, and deliberate emotional numbing through pharmaceutical intervention. Addiction rates exceeded 80% among personnel serving beyond 2 years, the administratum recognizing that functional guards required chemical assistance performing duties involving systematic dehumanization. Guards profited from prisoner mortality through resource skimming, selling personal effects, diverting medical supplies, processing deceased prisoners for organ harvesting. Supply officers generated phantom rations from dead prisoners, their ledgers recording allocations never distributed. Higher mortality rates increased revenue streams while reducing administrative burdens, creating perverse incentives encouraging neglect beyond operational requirements. From maintenance gantries, Jorik observed red classification prisoners escorted past main gates toward skull-marked corridors. Guards straightened when processing these cases, then looked away as if trained blindness were uniform protocol. The restricted sections pulsed with different machinery, suggesting hidden operations consuming human material through unspecified processes. The skull-marked corridors where red classifications vanished concealed Adeptus Mechanicus research stations operating beneath administrative oversight, their hidden laboratories converting condemned prisoners into experimental subjects for combat enhancement, disease resistance, and cybernetic integration programs serving the broader Imperial war machine. Survival rates hovered around 12%, but those who endured emerged, transformed beyond human recognition. Tech adept Voss Gamma managed primary operations through his own extensively modified form, mechanical appendages replacing deteriorated flesh, while cogitator implants processed data streams beyond baseline human comprehension. His research served dual purposes, advancing Imperial military augmentation while providing prison administrators with enhanced enforcement capabilities through systematic conversion of human material into mechanical assets. Combat enhancement procedures replaced muscle tissue with synthetic fiber bundles, bones reinforced with ceramide implants, nervous systems rewired through neural interface ports. Subjects remained conscious throughout modification to ensure psychological integration with mechanical components. Disease resistance experiments exposed prisoners to controlled pathogen samples, their immune responses monitored through embedded sensors tracking cellular breakdown patterns. Cybernetic integration programs substituted damaged organs with mechanical alternatives, testing compatibility between human biology and Imperial technology. Hearts became pumps, lungs became atmospheric processors, digestive systems became nutrient recycling units. Failed subjects provided valuable data, while successful conversions emerged as living weapons granted elevated status as prison enforcers. Gang boss Kellum's work partner Varn volunteered after witnessing his team's systematic elimination through impossible quota increases. 3 weeks later, he returned as enforcement unit, his left arm replaced by hydraulic crushing apparatus, right eye substituted with targeting cogitator, vocal cords modified to produce mechanical authority commands. Humanity sacrificed for mechanical efficiency, personality erased through neural conditioning. Enhanced survivors functioned as enforcement tools, their programming compelling absolute obedience to guard directives while eliminating emotional responses to prisoner suffering. They moved with inhuman precision, calculated violence replacing human brutality. Former prisoners transformed into mechanical predators created terror beyond conventional intimidation among general population. Volunteer programs exploited prisoner desperation, offering red classification to inmates unaware of true costs. Selection ceremonies drew signatures from men who could no longer lift rock or outrun despair, their consent purchased through promises of doubled rations and medical priority that concealed experimental reality. Jorik observed these transformations from maintenance scaffolding, recognizing faces that returned as optical lenses and hydraulic limbs. The Mechanicus required steady test subjects, their research quotas synchronized with penal facility population management. Enhancement programs converted resistance into mechanical compliance while advancing Imperial technology through systematic human consumption. Growing unrest rippled through prisoner populations as rumors spread about red classification destinations, threatening operational stability as the machinery of experimentation demanded continuous material regardless of consent. Growing unrest crystallized into coordinated violence when gang boss Kellum vanished during morning count, his red classification triggering impossible quota, increases that finally exceeded prisoner endurance. Shaft 7 operations collapsed without his organizational skills, while production targets climbed beyond physical possibility, creating conditions where systematic resistance became preferable to gradual extinction through overwork. The uprising erupted simultaneously across 4 mining levels as desperate prisoners converted industrial equipment into improvised weapons. Pickaxes became spears, drilling apparatus transformed into bludgeoning tools, heavy chains served as whips capable of stripping flesh from bone. Coordination emerged through prisoner networks developed over months, coded signals triggering violence that spread through interconnected tunnel systems faster than guard response protocols. Automated suppression systems deployed shock weapons and riot gas into confined spaces, but the rebellion exposed critical facility vulnerabilities. Without prisoner cooperation, production halted entirely. Extraction equipment required manual operation. Atmospheric processors needed constant maintenance. Food distribution depended on inmate labor gangs. Surveillance networks tracked movement but could not prevent coordinated sabotage of critical infrastructure. Jorik found himself trapped between survival instinct and desperate hope as violence escalated beyond sustainable limits. From maintenance scaffolding, he witnessed social hierarchies collapsing within hours, trustees abandoning elevated positions when general population turned against collaborators, their privileged status becoming liability rather than protection. The carefully engineered caste system dissolved into chaotic violence as desperation eliminated distinctions between prisoner classifications. Guard Captain Moros received alerts in his fortified command center, movement maps blooming red across multiple sectors. 18 hours of sustained rebellion demonstrated the system's fundamental dependence on prisoner compliance while revealing operational limits of skeleton guard crews. Automated defenses inflicted casualties but could not restore order without human intervention that guards were numerically incapable of providing. Red classification enforcers moved through chaos with mechanical precision, their cybernetic modifications enabling systematic violence against former fellow prisoners. Varn's hydraulic crushing apparatus and targeting cogitator eliminated resistance with calculated efficiency, his programming compelling absolute obedience to suppression directives while eliminating emotional responses to human suffering. After 12 hours of escalating violence, Moros authorized Terminal Correction Protocol, flooding Lower Shaft 7 through industrial coolant systems to contain uprising regardless of casualties. Hydraulic pumps diverted toxic sludge through Sigma 7 tunnel networks, drowning rebels and innocent prisoners alike in fluorescent antifreeze that filled underground chambers within 43 minutes. Emergency bulkheads sealed automatically, trapping hundreds below while mechanical systems processed human slurry. The flooding claimed 847 lives while demonstrating system priorities. Operational security exceeded prisoner preservation by administrative design. Bodies recovered during pump reversal provided protein reclamation opportunities, their deaths converted into nutritional resources for surviving populations through established processing protocols. Public torture executions followed systematic identification of suspected leaders through surveillance footage and informant reports. 3 prisoners from each affected level faced slow theatrical deaths designed to reassert absolute institutional authority while providing psychological conditioning for survivors. Their prolonged suffering served educational functions, demonstrating consequences of organized resistance through visceral example. Aftermath revealed the machinery's adaptive capacity as administration implemented enhanced control measures, making future coordinated uprising nearly impossible. Pharmaceutical compliance became mandatory through sedatives mixed into water supplies. Collective responsibility protocols punished entire work gangs for individual infractions. Surveillance expanded through prisoner informant networks, offering marginal survival incentives for cooperation. The rebellion had served imperial purposes through population culling synchronized with resource reallocation, reducing facility burden while generating valuable data about prisoner organization capabilities. Emergency repairs restored basic operations within 72 hours, but external pressure mounted from imperial authorities demanding restored production quotas, despite reduced workforce. As new control protocols took effect, surviving prisoners understood the system had absorbed their resistance, learned from their tactics, and emerged stronger through systematic adaptation that converted rebellion into administrative improvement opportunity, setting conditions for intensified oppression that would push remaining populations beyond human endurance. The systematic aftermath of absorbed rebellion crystallized into enhanced control measures designed to prevent future coordination through deeper atomization and institutional mistrust. Chemical tang lingered in flooded tunnels where chalk lines marked coolant recession. 847 names scratched from ledgers, while protein reclamators hummed longer than mourning periods. Administrative efficiency converted casualties into operational improvements within 72 hours. Pharmaceutical compliance arrived through mandatory sedatives mixed into water supplies, sopor salts, dulling aggressive impulses while maintaining functional labor capacity. Dose levels scaled by classification. Heavies received strongest concentrations, technicals slightly less, trustees minimal amounts. Guard Captain Moros signed requisitions projecting 9% reduction in violent incidents through neurological suppression that eliminated choice while preserving productive capability. Expanded surveillance operated through prisoner informant networks, offering marginal survival incentives for betrayal. Extra rations, medical priority, and protection from violence. Purchased loyalty among desperate populations willing to sacrifice fellow prisoners for temporary advantages. Information flowed through carefully cultivated collaboration systems, making private conversation impossible, while rewarding cooperation with institutional authority. Collective responsibility protocols punished entire work gangs for individual infractions, creating peer pressure systems where prisoners monitored each other with predatory intensity. Single quota failures triggered team-wide ration reductions. Unauthorized gatherings earned group floggings. Escape attempts resulted in collective execution for remaining gang members, converting solidarity into liability through systematic application of shared consequences. Prison populations adapted through paranoid isolation, as trust became survival liability. Prisoners avoided eye contact, minimized conversation, eliminated emotional connections that created vulnerability through collective punishment protocols. Social bonds dissolved into atomized fear where cooperation meant exposure to informant networks designed to exploit human relationships for administrative control. Jorik, marked as potential troublemaker through surveillance analysis of rebellion participation, faced increased scrutiny, requiring careful navigation of enhanced security protocols. His technical skills remained valuable, but attracted unwanted attention from guards tracking movement patterns and social interactions. Accepting sanctuary assignment offered protection from general population suspicion while avoiding direct confrontation with expanded control measures. Production quotas increased despite population reduction, forcing survivors beyond human endurance through mathematical impossibility. Identical extraction targets with 800 fewer prisoners created workload increases exceeding physical capacity even with pharmaceutical enhancement. Guard casualties mounted from exhaustion and substance abuse as extended rotations exceeded sustainable limits, suggesting operational parameters approaching critical failure points. The uprising had served Imperial administrative purposes through population culling synchronized with resource reallocation, reducing facility burden while generating valuable behavioral data about prisoner organization capabilities. System adaptation converted rebellion into administrative improvement opportunity, eliminating resistance possibilities through intensified oppression that pushed remaining populations toward breaking points requiring desperate choices. Jorik's acceptance of sanctuary assignment offered escape from intensified surveillance through duties that preserved prisoners from general population violence while requiring participation in the system's most morally corrosive functions. His technical classification earned assignment to Administrative Archive, where climate-controlled chambers housed ledgers revealing the true scale of systematic consumption hidden beneath bureaucratic euphemisms and statistical abstractions. Processing deceased prisoners for protein reclamation operated through mechanical conveyors delivering bodies with scarification removed. Industrial rendering, converting human flesh into nutritional supplements, distributed through general rations without identification. Sanctuary workers operated meat processing equipment with clinical detachment. Their survival purchased through complicity in consuming fellow prisoners converted into sustenance through institutional cannibalism disguised as resource management protocols. Maintenance of torture equipment demanded technical expertise applied to mechanisms designed for systematic suffering. Shock chairs required calibration, ensuring pain without death. Flogging apparatus needed tension adjustments preventing fatal injuries. Isolation cells demanded environmental controls, maintaining psychological pressure without triggering complete breakdown. Jorik's mechanical knowledge enabled precise suffering through engineering expertise applied to human destruction with bureaucratic efficiency. Comfort services for guards and trustees converted prisoners into sexual resources through administrative assignment rather than violent coercion. Sanctuary workers provided physical intimacy as duty rather than choice. Their bodies commodified through bureaucratic process that eliminated consent while maintaining operational fiction of voluntary compliance. Survival required psychological dissociation from physical violation systematically administered through institutional authority. Administrative archive access revealed mortality statistics hidden from general population. 67% died within 2 years, with records falsified showing successful rehabilitation and release. Death certificates listed fictional destinations while actual remains underwent protein processing or organ harvesting. Transport manifests recorded departures that never occurred, their phantom passengers converted into administrative fiction, maintaining imperial compliance with theoretical rehabilitation mandates. Ghost quotas emerged from ledger analysis as production targets calculated using dead prisoners' labor capacity, forcing survivors to compensate through impossible workload increases. Mining quotas assumed full prisoner complement, while actual population declined through systematic attrition, creating mathematical impossibilities requiring superhuman effort from remaining workers. The dead continued working through bureaucratic fiction that ignored physical reality while demanding tangible results. Sanctuary assignments created complicity webs, making prisoners instruments of their own oppression through survival choices requiring moral compromise. Those accepting protection participated in systems consuming fellow inmates, their hands stained with institutional violence disguised as administrative duty. Refusing meant exposure to general population violence. Accepting meant becoming executioner through bureaucratic process that corrupted conscience while preserving flesh. The system's genius operated through forced collaboration where survival required complicity in dehumanization. Sanctuary workers understood their protected status depended on performing functions too psychologically damaging for guards, their moral destruction serving institutional efficiency while eliminating resistance through corruption of individual ethics. Hope transformed into coping mechanism rather than rescue possibility. Jorik's archive work exposed complete operational scope, Kithra Tertius consumed human material at predictable rates, serving Imperial supply chains while maintaining fictional rehabilitation statistics. Prisoners never left. They died or became complicit in systematic consumption of subsequent arrivals through carefully engineered moral compromise that converted victims into perpetrators, setting conditions for sustainability crisis. As mortality exceeded replacement capacity, the archive ledgers exposing systematic moral corruption also revealed mathematical breakdown, threatening operational sustainability, as mortality exceeded replacement capacity through accelerating attrition cycles. Kithra Tertius required 45,000 active workers for Imperial quota compliance, but maintained only 31,000 living prisoners following post-uprising casualties, with merely 28,900 registered as fit for duty after injuries, chemical burns, and pharmaceutical exhaustion. Monthly transport deliveries carried increasingly unsuitable demographics, reflecting sector-wide judicial failures. 12% juveniles too small for heavy mining equipment, 19% elderly whose bones powdered after underground exposure, 14% disabled populations marked for inherited guilt violations. The Adeptus Mechanicus skimmed healthiest arrivals for red classification programs, further depleting functional workforce while Imperial authorities demanded 6% production increases despite population collapse. Guard Captain Moros faced daily Vox transmissions from Sector Command, threatening disciplinary action for declining output. His carefully crafted reports obscuring true mortality rates bought temporary reprieves while mathematical impossibility accumulated like toxic frost in ventilation systems. Administrative logic demanded results regardless of physical constraints, creating operational crisis requiring desperate pharmaceutical intervention. Efficiency protocols emerged as medical stimulants extending working life at cost of accelerated organ failure. Combat drugs designed for battlefield emergencies became daily supplements. Stim-9/Black maintaining muscle function. Corticoadrenal enhancers suppressing collapse reflexes. Lung bliss paste, delaying mine dust poisoning. 18-hour shifts stretched through contiguous consolidation, while wire brace exoharnesses propped ruined spines enough to keep picks moving. Dose schedules promised 18% output increases for 90 days and guaranteed organ failure by 4th month. Jorik's archive access revealed encrypted communications between penal administrators across the subsector, documenting similar sustainability crises. Inter-facility memoranda discussed resource sharing, prisoner transfers, and operational modifications required for Imperial compliance while managing population depletion. The conversations detailed collapsing intake quality, rising mortality rates, and impossible production demands, suggesting systemic Imperial design flaws rather than localized mismanagement. Terminal harvest protocols converted dying prisoners into final value extraction through organ harvesting and biomass processing before natural death eliminated recovery opportunities. Medical officers monitored vital signs identifying prisoners approaching stimulant-induced mortality, their bodies processed while consciousness remained, ensuring organ viability. Hearts, kidneys, neural tissue, and bone marrow entered Imperial medical supply chains while remaining flesh underwent protein reclamation for facility nutrition systems. Secret administrative correspondence discussed expanding terminal harvest operations beyond dying prisoners to include healthy inmates whose labor value fell below organ harvesting profits. Medical assessments identified candidates for processing based on age, skill degradation, and behavioral compliance rather than health status alone. Credits from harvested materials backfilled ghost quotas, maintaining fictional production statistics while consuming workforce through systematic resource extraction. Population mathematics revealed inevitable collapse within 18 months, as mortality exceeded sustainable limits while Imperial quotas remained constant, setting conditions for complete operational restructuring that administrators lacked authority to implement without sector approval unlikely to arrive before mathematical impossibility destroyed facility capacity entirely. The mathematical impossibility driving operational collapse found its solution in terminal harvest protocols. Systematic conversion of dying prisoners into medical supplies, protein supplements, and industrial biomass through processing facilities hidden beneath the main compound. Red classification survivors staffed sterile surgical chambers, their cybernetic modifications enabling precise organ extraction with mechanical efficiency that baseline humans could not. Psychologically sustain over extended periods. Medical officers deliberately withheld treatment to optimize harvest yields, monitoring vital signs to identify processing windows where organ viability remained highest. Hearts required extraction within 40 minutes of cardiac arrest. Kidneys remained functional for 6 hours. Post-mortem, neural tissue demanded immediate processing while consciousness persisted. Timing protocols synchronized death schedules with harvesting capacity, converting natural mortality into scheduled resource recovery operations. Processing conveyor systems delivered bodies with scarification removed. Industrial rendering equipment converting remaining flesh into protein supplements distributed through general rations without identification. Bone marrow entered Imperial medical supply chains for battlefield trauma treatment. Synthetic leather from processed skin supplied equipment manufacturing. Complete utilization eliminated waste while generating revenue streams that exceeded mining operations, making human processing more valuable than ore extraction. Varn's hydraulic modifications enabled precise dismemberment with surgical accuracy, his targeting cogitator calculating optimal incision angles, while neural conditioning eliminated emotional responses to processing former fellow prisoners. Red survivors functioned as living surgical equipment, their humanity sacrificed for operational capacity requiring mechanical precision beyond human psychological tolerance. System incentives created perverse profit structures where guards and administrators earned more from prisoner deaths than productive labor. Medical officers received efficiency bonuses for harvest yields rather than patient survival rates. Guard Captain Moros discovered organ revenue could offset mineral extraction shortfalls, making terminal harvest essential for quota compliance while maintaining fictional rehabilitation statistics. Jorik's archive access revealed complete operational deception through cross-referenced documentation. Records showing successful rehabilitation and transfer to Imperial service corresponded precisely with harvest operation dates. Serial numbers traced from holding blocks to cold room inventory sheets revealed systematic conversion of living prisoners into cataloged medical supplies within hours, their official destinations existing only as bureaucratic fiction. Inter-prison trade networks exchanged processed human materials through encrypted manifests disguising commodity origins. Kythera Tertius exported protein supplements to agricultural penal worlds while importing synthetic stimulants from manufacturing facilities. Medical supplies harvested from condemned prisoners entered sector-wide distribution systems, serving Imperial Guard regiments and civilian hospitals without identification of human sources. Administrative ledgers tracked human materials with identical precision applied to mineral extraction. Accounting systems treating processed prisoners as renewable resources, requiring sustainable harvesting practices. Complete commodification eliminated any pretense of rehabilitation, revealing penal worlds as systematic conversion facilities, transforming surplus populations into imperial resources through bureaucratic processes, disguising institutional cannibalism as administrative efficiency, setting conditions for complete psychological breakdown among prisoners discovering the system's true scope. Complete awareness of systematic human processing transformed knowledge into its own form of imprisonment for prisoners who understood their inevitable conversion into cataloged medical supplies. Jorik's archive work revealed the unbearable truth. Personal files containing family photographs and love letters filed alongside organ extraction reports. Children's drawings archived next to protein yield calculations. Reading individual histories while cataloging harvest schedules created cognitive dissonance that no psychological defense could withstand. Different coping mechanisms emerged among those discovering operational reality. Nihilistic violence erupted as prisoners attacked guards with suicidal fury, seeking bolt rounds rather than processing tables. Their defiance rarely lasted long, quickly met with correction protocols or red enforcer precision. Others retreated into religious fanaticism, forming secret prayer circles invoking emperor's mercy while consuming protein supplements rendered from previous believers, their desperate litanies serving as psychological anesthetic against horror. Many simply shut down, minds retreating into catatonia, while bodies became automatons performing assigned tasks with vacant stares. These walking dead offered no resistance, their blank expressions providing terrifying testament to the system's ability to consume even the will to survive. Their consciousness retreated from unbearable reality through dissociative episodes that preserved function while destroying humanity. Guard Captain Moros represented administrative perspective, viewing systematic dehumanization as necessary, evil-serving imperial efficiency, while consuming increasing quantities of alcohol and combat stimulants. His reports emphasized operational success through carefully crafted statistics obscuring human costs behind bureaucratic abstractions. 8 years of managing systematic consumption required chemical suppression of empathy. His conscience dissolved through pharmaceutical intervention, enabling continued function as institutional cog. Jorik faced impossible moral choices through archive access. Tasked with collating rehabilitation outcomes for incoming Imperial inspection, he could erase 10,000 ghosts with one keystroke or preserve their memory and doom living prisoners to correction protocols for statistical variance. Complete knowledge created responsibility impossible to bear, understanding machinery, while lacking power to stop it. Participating in systems requiring moral compromise while maintaining enough humanity to recognize ethical destruction. Imperial inspection teams arrived quarterly to evaluate penal world efficiency, their focus on productivity metrics rather than humanitarian concerns revealing systematic design rather than operational failure. Encrypted communications confirmed inspection arrival within 6 solar days. Auditors, logisticians, Mechanicus attaché-seeking figures, not justice. Hope flickered dangerously among prisoners believing external oversight might bring restraint, but archives revealed inspections audited output, not suffering. Knowledge became imprisonment as complete awareness eliminated psychological defenses against institutional horror. Survival required psychological compartmentalization, preserving function while destroying conscience, setting conditions where maintaining humanity within inhuman systems demanded choices no person should face. Imperial inspection teams arrived with mechanical precision, administrative efficiency experts stepping from shuttles that smelled of oiled parchment and statistical abstractions. They examined ledgers, not tunnels, variance reports, not graves, harvest yields, not human costs. Guard Captain Moros faced 14 minutes of questioning, 3 inquiries about sensor uptime, 1 about coolant redundancy, 0 about the names behind the numbers. The findings validated systematic design rather than revealing operational failure. Human waste conversion operated within acceptable parameters. Mortality rates synchronized with replacement schedules. Organ harvesting maintained medical supply quotas. Protein processing eliminated disposal costs. Efficiency ratings exceeded sector averages through innovative resource utilization, maximizing Imperial benefit from condemned populations. Recommendations emerged through algorithmic analysis. Increase pharmaceutical compliance by 16%. Expand red classification programs among technicals. Streamline terminal. Harvest procedures. Maintain informant network density above sector mean. The system had congratulated itself while adding weight to the same crushing machinery. Moros received commendation for maintaining production during Population difficulties. His 8 years of systematic human consumption earning imperial approval rather than censure. Administrative skills recognized through promotion recommendations, validated institutional priorities measuring success through output statistics rather than preservation of human dignity. Jorik, 2-year survivor marked as institutional success, found himself training new arrivals in survival protocols. He perpetuated systems he once resisted, teaching desperate prisoners to navigate hierarchies, accept pharmaceutical compliance, understand unwritten rules governing daily existence within machinery designed for systematic consumption. Knowledge had become complicity. Survival required perpetuation. The transport Redemption's promise descended through rust-colored atmosphere. 50,000 fresh prisoners processed according to precise demographic specifications. Processing began within hours, scarification ceremonies converting human cargo into classified inventory through mechanical procedures perfected over years of systematic refinement. Brass tally engines clicked louder than hymns, each metallic percussion marking another soul, processed into quantified imperial output. The eternal engine consumed human material at predictable rates requiring constant replenishment, serving supply chains while maintaining fictional rehabilitation statistics through administrative deception. The catechism endures for those who learn it. Keep your head down, trade knowledge for time, drink last, work first, never volunteer red, count steps to flood doors, forget names of the dead. Remember rules that keep you breathing one day more. The line moved. The machine accepted its offering. Kithra Tertius turned once more, a planet of ledgers and graves pretending to be a court of justice.